हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल। और आज का जो टॉपिक है वो है सेंटर स्टेट रिलेशन, जो हमने दो पार्ट में डिवाइड करा बिकॉज ये बहुत ज़्यादा लेंथी है। लेकिन उससे पहले यूपीएससी रिवीजन कार्निवल ऑलरेडी स्टार्ट हो चुका है और आपकी स्पेशल क्लासेस फेस्टिवल हो रही हैं जो 5 सितंबर 2020 से है। हमारे यहाँ आपको 400 प्लस लाइव क्लासेस अवेलेबल हैं। उसके साथ साथ आपको अनअकैडमी यूपीएससी चैंपियनशिप 2.0 के साथ साथ आपको ऑल इंडिया फ्री मॉक टेस्ट सीरीज भी मिल रही हैं और यूपीएससी सीएससी प्रिम्स 2020-2021 पेपर 1 जेएस। और आपको इसमें एक और अपॉर्चुनिटी मिल सकती है कि आप यूपीएससी सीएससी 2019 टॉपर से मिल सकते हैं अनअकैडमी एजुकेटर्स, और आपको उसके साथ सब्सक्रिप्शन स्कॉलरशिप मिलेगी। तो आपको ये सब बेनिफिट्स है, अगर आपको एक चांस मिलेगी इसमें अगर आप ये जीत गए। उसके बाद ये 30 अगस्त सितंबर, 13 सितंबर, 20 सितंबर, 27 सितंबर को होगा। तो आप एनरोल करिए इसके लिए। उसके बाद हमें पता हमारे एग्जाम स्टार्ट होने वाले हैं नेक्स्ट मंथ से। तो अगर आपको अपनी प्रिपरेशन पूरी कंप्लीट करनी है जो ऑलरेडी हो चुकी है और रिवीजन के लिए आपको प्रॉपर गाइडेंस चाहिए, तो आप यूपीएससी सीएससी 2020 अनअकैडमी के साथ एनरोल कर सकते हैं। उसके साथ साथ आपको इस एक सब्सक्रिप्शन के साथ काफ़ी सारा बेनिफिट मिलेगा, जैसे आप अपने घर से पढ़ सकते हो, आपको अनलिमिटेड एक्सेस मिलेगा सारे रिसोर्सेज से, और आपको टॉप एजुकेटर्स मिलेंगे, फुल सिलेबस कवरेज होगा, आपकी रेगुलर डाउट क्लियरिंग सेशन होगी, लाइव टेस्ट सीरीज होगी, स्टडी मटेरियल पीडीएफ फॉर्मेट में, आंसर राइटिंग सेशंस, और ये सब हमारे प्रॉपर मेंटरशिप और गाइडेंस के अंदर होगा जो आपको सारे एजुकेटर्स देंगे। उसके बाद एक यूपीएससी जो प्रिपरेशन है, जो ये पैकेज ला रहे हैं हम अनअकैडमी, आपको एक वन स्टॉप सोल्यूशन होगा जो आपके कंप्लीट यूपीएससी सीएससी प्रिपरेशन के लिए है। जैसे यहाँ पे स्ट्रक्चर्ड बैचेस है विद टॉप एजुकेटर्स, आपके बैचेस हिंदी इंग्लिश और बाइलिंगुअल दोनों में है, आपकी लेट नाइट क्लासेस है और उसके साथ 2 ईयर बैचेस की भी है। उसके बाद आपको फुल 100% सिलेबस कवरेज है, आपको वास्ट रेंज ऑफ ऑप्शंस में प्रीलिम्स टेस्ट सीरीज है, मेन टेस्ट सीरीज है, डबल डाउट क्लियरिंग सेशन है, और उसके साथ साथ आपको इंटरव्यू की भी प्रिपरेशन होगी ताकि आप अपने टाइम को कितने अच्छे से यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं यूपीएससी प्रिपरेशन के लिए, ताकि आप 100% सक्सेसफुल हो इस एग्जाम में। उसके बाद हम आते हैं कि हमारे जो यूपीएससी सीएससी कंप्लीट बैच प्रिपरेशन कोर्सेज है वो ऑलरेडी स्टार्ट हो चुके हैं 7 सितंबर 2020। तो अगर आपको इसके बारे में और जानकारी जाने तो आप इन बैचेस में से किसी भी क्लिक कर सकते हैं। और आपको यूपीएससी सीएससी 2021 के बैचेस के आपको 3 डिफरेंट कोर्सेज प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं, जो एक तो बाइलिंगुअल है, एक पूरा हिंदी में और एक इंग्लिश में। तो आप जिस लैंग्वेज में कंफर्टेबल आप उस लैंग्वेज में आप एनरोल कर सकते हैं उसके लिए। और आपको अगर आप अभी सब्सक्राइब करते हैं आपको 10% ऑफ मिल सकता है। तो आपको ये कोड अप्लाई करना है SIMPLEYT में। और अगर आपको हमारा ये चैनल बहुत अच्छा लगा और आपको हमारे वीडियोस बहुत इन्फॉर्मेटिव लगे और आपके लिए हेल्पफुल लगी, तो आप प्लीज़ सब्सक्राइब करना और ज्वाइन करना यूट्यूब पे, टेलीग्राम पे, फेसबुक पे, आप जिस सोशल नेटवर्किंग साइट पे अवेलेबल है। सो लेट्स कम ऑन टू आवर चैप्टर। तो सबसे पहले जो हम चैप्टर में बात कर हुआ है कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया हमारा है, जो फेडरल होने के बाद भी इसके स्ट्रक्चर्स है, डिवाइड हो रखी हैं सारी पावर्स between the state and the center। बट यहाँ पे हम देख सकते हैं कि क्या कहते हैं कि यहाँ पे there is no division of judicial power of the constitution that has been established by an integrated judicial system to enforce the central laws as well as the state laws। तो हमारा क्या इसका मतलब है, बेसिकली हमारे यहाँ पे कोई ऐसा जुडिशियल लॉज कोई इन्फोर्स करने के लिए नहीं कि ये सेंटर के हैं ये स्टेट के, तो जुडिशियल ऐसा कोई सिस्टम नहीं है अभी तक। उसके बाद हम आते हैं कि सेंटर और स्टेट जो है वो सुप्रीम है अपने अपने फील्ड्स के अंडर, और उसके बाद ये प्रोवाइड करता ताकि हमारे मैक्सिमम हार्मनी हो, कोऑर्डिनेशन हो, जो काफ़ी ज़्यादा एसेंशियल है प्रॉपर डेमोक्रेसी को फंक्शन करने के लिए। उसके बाद हम देखते हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में काफ़ी इलेबोरेटेड प्रोविजंस हैं जो रेगुलेट करते हैं सारे डायमेंशन और रिलेशन से। जो हम आगे वाले जो टॉपिक्स पढ़ेंगे वो हम इन 3 ब्रॉड हेडिंग्स में पढ़ेंगे। लेजिस्लेटिव रिलेशंस पढ़ेंगे, उसके बाद एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव और फाइनेंशियल। अब सेंटर और स्टेट के यहाँ पे कैसे इन्फ्लुएंस होते हैं रिलेशंस। फर्स्ट हम आते हैं लेजिस्लेटिव रिलेशंस में। अब जो हमारे आर्टिकल्स है, जो आर्टिकल्स नंबर 245 से लेके 255 तक जो पार्ट 11 में है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के, वो सिर्फ ये डील करता है जो लेजिस्लेटिव रिलेशंस होने चाहिए सेंटर और स्टेट के बीच में। उसके बाद और भी कई ऐसे आर्टिकल्स हैं जो सेम सब्जेक्ट पे डील करते हैं। अब हम देखते हैं कि हमारा बाकी सब फेडरल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की तरह जो इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है उसके भी लेजिस्लेटिव पावर्स बहुत आसानी से हमने डिवाइड कर रखे जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मेकर्स हैं, जैसे टेरिटरी के हैं, सब्जेक्ट्स कौन से आएंगे लेजिस्लेशन में। उसके बाद कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ये प्रोवाइड करता है कि पार्लियामेंट्री लेजिस्लेशन कौन से फील्ड में होगा और कौन से 5 एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी सिचुएशन होगा जिसमें सेंट्रल का डायरेक्ट कंट्रोल होगा ओवर स्टेट। ये हमने भी देखा, हमने सर्टेन केसेस भी पढ़े हैं। अब हम देख सकते हैं, अब हम बेसिकली 4 एस्पेक्ट की बात करते हैं इसके अंदर। जो फर्स्ट है वो है टेरिटोरियल एक्सटेंट ऑफ central and state legislation, distribution of legislative subjects, parliamentary legislation in the state field when Rajya Sabha passes a resolution or during the national emergency, or when a state makes a request to implement international agreements, or during the president rules। और उसके बाद आते हैं central's control over legislation। अब हम अपने सबसे पहले पॉइंट पे आते हैं जो लिखा है टेरिटोरियल एक्सटेंट ऑफ सेंट्रल और स्टेट लेजिस्लेशन। इसके अंदर ये पढ़ते जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है उसने डिफाइन करा है कि टेरिटोरियल लिमिट्स क्या है लेजिस्लेटिव पावर्स की जो स्टेट और सेंटर के बीच में है। तो काफ़ी सारे वेज उसमें हम उसमें 3 वेज पढ़ेंगे। जो है उसमें सबसे पहला है वो है पार्लियामेंट कैन मेक लॉज फॉर द होल इंडिया और एनी पार्ट ऑफ territory of India, and the territory of India basically includes the state, the union territories and the other areas for the time being that has been included in the territory of India. Now the second feature of this is that a state legislature can make laws for the whole or any part of the state, and the laws made by a state legislature are not applicable outside the state except when there is a sufficient nexus between the state and the object। तो उसमें मतलब जो सेंटर बनाता है लॉज, जो भी लॉज बनाते हैं वो सब के लिए एप्लीकेबल होते हैं, पर्टिकुलर स्टेट के लिए नहीं होते, बट वो पूरा इंक्लूड करते हैं, यूनियन टेरिटरी स्टेट्स इंक्लूड करते हैं और भी जो एरियाज होते हैं। वेराज अगर हम देखते हैं स्टेट के अंदर, तो स्टेट के अंदर जो है वो जो लॉज बने हैं वो सिर्फ एक ही स्टेट के अंदर हो सकते हैं, वो बाकी सब जगह पे नहीं बन सकते और एप्लीकेबल नहीं है, और इसकी सिचुएशन भी हमें बताई गई है। उसके बाद आते हैं कि पार्लियामेंट अलोन कैन मेक एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी टेरिटोरियल लेजिस्लेशन and thus the rules of the parliament are also applicable to the citizens of India and their property in any part of the world। तो पार्लियामेंट ये भी लॉज बना सकता है जो एक्स्ट्रा टेरिटोरियल लेजिस्लेशन का है कि जो लॉज ऑफ पार्लियामेंट है वो एप्लीकेबल है सिटीजन ऑफ इंडिया को और जो प्रॉपर्टी उनकी बाकी सब कंट्रीज में भी है। अब जो हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है वो काफ़ी रिस्ट्रिक्शन प्लेस करता है जो टेरिटोरियल जुरिस्डिक्शन में है, जैसे कि पार्लियामेंट में। तो जो हम कह सकते हैं कि जो लॉज ऑफ पार्लियामेंट है वो सारी जगह एप्लीकेबल नहीं है। अब हम केसेस की बात करते हैं। पहला तो हम बात करते हैं कि प्रेसिडेंट कैन मेक रेगुलेशंस फॉर द पीस, प्रोग्रेस एंड गुड गवर्नमेंट ऑफ द 4 यूनियन टेरिटरीज अंडमान निकोबार आइलैंड्स, लक्षद्वीप, Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu। A regulation is so made has the same force effect as a Parliament Act and it can be also repealed or amended। उसके बाद आता है the governor is empowered to take direct that an act of the parliament does not apply to a scheduled area in the state and apply with the specific modifications and exception। Then तीसरा आते हैं the governor of Assam may likewise direct that an act of parliament does not apply to certain tribal areas in the state or apply the specific modification or exception, and the president enjoys the same power with respect to the tribal areas that are autonomous districts in Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram। मेघालय, त्रिपुरा एंड मिजोरम, ये जो 3 स्टेट्स हैं वहाँ पे बेसिकली ये एक्ट होता है। उसके बाद हम आते हैं सेकंड टॉपिक पे जो हम बात करते हैं वो है डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ लेजिस्लेटिव सब्जेक्ट्स। अब जो हमने देखा है कि 3-4 डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ लेजिस्लेटिव सब्जेक्ट्स होते हैं। पहला तो है जो यूनियन लिस्ट है, जो लिस्ट 1 है, स्टेट लिस्ट है जिसको हम लिस्ट 2 बोलते हैं, और थर्ड लिस्ट है जो कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट है, लिस्ट 3 है, जो हमारे 7th शेड्यूल में एग्जैक्टली मेंशन है बहुत क्लियरली। अब पार्लियामेंट में जो एक्सक्लूसिव पावर्स दी हैं लॉज बनाने के लिए वो मैटर्स दिए, जैसे यूनियन लिस्ट में उसमें है 100 सब्जेक्ट, बट ओरिजिनल जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बना था उसमें 97 सब्जेक्ट्स थे। इसमें जैसे डिफेंस आ गया, बैंकिंग आ गया, फॉरेन अफेयर्स, करेंसी, atomic energy, insurance, communication, ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स, सेंसस, ऑडिट एंड सो ऑन. तो ये सब बनता है. उसके बाद जो स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव है वो है हैज इन नॉर्मल circumstances exclusive power to make the laws with respect to any matters enumerated in the state list. और ओरिजिनली 61 ओरिजिनली इसमें 66 सब्जेक्ट्स है बट अभी यहाँ पे 61 है. जैसे हम कहते हैं पब्लिक ऑर्डर हो गए, पुलिस हो गए, इसमें पब्लिक हेल्थ आ गया है, सैनिटाइजेशन, एग्रीकल्चर, प्रिजन, लोकल गवर्नमेंट, फिशरीज, मार्केट, थिएटर्स, गैम्बलिंग एंड सो ऑन. तो ये सब बन सकते हैं उसका. अब हम इसमें जो थर्ड आते हैं वो है कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट में, जिसमें ज़्यादा सेंटर और स्टेट दोनों मिलके बना सकते हैं. इसमें ओरिजिनली जो थे वो 47 सब्जेक्ट से बट इसमें 52 है करेंटली. जैसे क्रिमिनल लॉ हो गया, डिवोर्स हो गया, सिविल प्रोसीजर हो गया, पॉपुलेशन कंट्रोल, फैमिली प्लानिंग, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, लेबर वेलफेयर, इकोनॉमी, बुक्स, प्रिंटिंग प्रेस एक्सेट्रा. अब जो 42nd अमेंडमेंट था 1976 में, उसने जो 5 सब्जेक्ट जो कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट से थे उनने स्टेट लिस्ट में, तो कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट फ्रॉम द स्टेट लिस्ट, तो उन्होंने स्टेट लिस्ट जैसे एजुकेशन, फॉरेस्ट, वेट्स मेजर्स, प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ वाइल्ड लाइफ, बर्ड्स, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ऑफ जस्टिस, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एंड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ ऑल द कोर्ट्स एक्सेप्ट द सुप्रीम कोर्ट एंड द हाई कोर्ट. तो हम यहाँ पे लोअर कोर्ट की बात कर रहे हैं. उसके बाद जो आते जो पावर्स है वो इनके सबके क्या है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द रेसिडरी सब्जेक्ट, द मैटर्स दैट व्हिच आर नॉट enumerated in list 3 is vested in the parliament and the residuary power of includes the power to levy the residuary taxes. अब हम देखते हैं, अब हम यूएस में आते हैं तो यूएस से अगर कंपेयर करेंगे अपने पावर्स को जो लेजिस्लेटिव है तो उसमें देखते हैं जो ओनली पावर्स ऑफ फेडरल गवर्नमेंट है वो काफ़ी इन्यूमरेटेड है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में. जो रजिस्ट्री पावर्स है वो उनने सारा जो है वो उनने स्टेट्स के हाथ में दे रखा. उसका जो ऑस्ट्रेलियन में अगर दिखते तो वो भी अमेरिकन पैटर्न फॉलो करते हैं, सेम सिंगल इन्यूमरेशन ऑफ पावर. कनाडा में तो वहाँ पे डबल इन्यूमरेशन है, एक तो है फेडरल और प्रोविंशियल है, और जो रेसिडरी पावर्स है वो ज़्यादा क्या है सेंटर के पास है. अब आते हैं जो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट था जो 1935 में था, उसने प्रोवाइड करता 3 फोल्ड इन्यूमरेशन, मतलब 3 उसमें डिवाइड होने थे जो है फेडरल, प्रोविंशियल एंड कॉन्करेंट. जो प्रेजेंट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन उनने भी सेम अपनाया और बस एक डिफरेंस के साथ कि जो रेसिड्यूरी पावर्स है दैट वाज नीदर टू द फेडरल लेजिस्लेचर नॉट टू द प्रोविजन but to the Governor General of India. So India follows the Canadian precedent in this. So please remember this point. And the Constitution expressly secures the predominance of Union list over the state list and the concurrent list and the that of the concurrent list over the state list. तो अब ये क्या है, ओवरलैपिंग है बिटवीन यूनियन लिस्ट और स्टेट लिस्ट और द फॉर्मर शुड प्रिवेल. तो इन केस अगर कोई ओवरलैपिंग होती है इन सब के बीच में तो एक फॉर्मल लिस्ट जो होती है वो जो बड़ी होती है वो ज़्यादा प्रिवेल करती है. जैसे अगर यूनियन लिस्ट और कॉन्करेंट, अब इसमें से जो फॉर्मल है वो प्रिवेल करेगी. अब यहाँ पे जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट होता है कॉन्करेंट और स्टेट में तो ऑब्वियस ही बात है कि इसमें जो फॉर्मल लिस्ट है वही प्रिवेल करेगा. अब हम आते हैं तीसरे पॉइंट की बात करते जो है पार्लियामेंट्री लेजिस्लेशन इन द स्टेट फील्ड की बात करते. अब ये जो टॉपिक हमने बात करा है डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन लेजिस्लेटिव पावर जो सेंटर और स्टेट्स के बीच में है वो एक मेंटेन होती है जो नॉर्मल टाइम से. अब हम आते हैं अब नॉर्मल टाइम से जब बात करते हैं तो स्कीम ऑफ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन इज ईदर मॉडिफाइड और एक्चुअली सस्पेंडेड. अब इन अदर वर्ड्स का हमारा इसका बेसिकली मतलब कि जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है वो एम्पावर करता है पार्लियामेंट को कि वो लॉज बनाए कोई भी मैटर से जो उनकी स्टेट लिस्ट में एन्यूमरेट वो 5 एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी सिचुएशन में. पहला तो है जब एक राज्यसभा पास करते एक रेजोल्यूशन. अब इफ द राज्यसभा डिक्लेयर्स दैट इज नेसेसरी इन द नेशनल इंटरेस्ट द पार्लियामेंट शुड मेक लॉज इन ऑन द मैटर ऑफ स्टेट लिस्ट देन इट डज एंड देन पार्लियामेंट बिकम्स अ competent to make the laws on that matter. Such a resolution must be supported by 2/3 of the members present and voting, and the resolution remains in force for the 1 year. It can be renewed by a number of times but not exceeding the time limit of 1 year. अब हम आते हैं ड्यूरिंग द नेशनल इमरजेंसी. अब नेशनल इमरजेंसी में द पावर ऑफ लेजिस्लेटिव इज विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द मैटर ऑफ स्टेट लिस्ट. While proclaim of national emergency is in the operation, the laws became incorporative of expiration of the 6 months after the emergency has ceased to operate. Here also the power of the state legislature is to make the laws and on the same matter is not restricted but in case of repingency and between the state law and the parliamentary law and the latter is to prevail. अब हम आते हैं when the state makes a request. अब जो लेजिस्लेशन में 2 और मोर स्टेट पास करते हैं, रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं पार्लियामेंट को कि ये लॉज इनैक्ट होने चाहिए इस मैटर में, लिस्ट में, देन द पार्लियामेंट कैन मेक लॉज, मतलब पार्लियामेंट उसका लॉज बना सकती है, एंड लॉ आल्सो इनैक्ट अप्लाइज ओनली टू दोज स्टेट व्हिच हैव एक्चुअली पास दैट रेजोल्यूशन. However, if any other state may adopt it afterwards by passing such resolution to affect the legislator. Such a law can be amended, repealed by the parliament and not by the legislatures of the concerned state. The effect of passing a resolution under the above, under basically this provision, is to respect the matter for which it has no power. It has no power to make a law. On the other hand, the state legislature ceases to have power to make law with respect to such matters. We can take example that laws passed that was under above were the Price Competition Act in 1955, Wildlife Protection Act, Water Prevention Control and Pollution Act, Urban Land Sealing and Regulation Act, Transplantation of Women Organ Act in 1994. And let's come on to the fourth point, that is to implement the international agreements. Is basically the parliament can make laws on any matter in the state list for implementing the international treaties, agreements or conventions. The provision basically allows central government to fulfill their international obligations and the commitments. So some of the example that we can take in this were the United Nations, the Privileges and Immunity Act in 1947, then Geneva Convention Act in 1960, then Anti-Hijacking Act in 1982, and the legislation relating to the environment and the tariffs. And then let's come on to during the president's rule. Basically, when the president rule is imposed in the state, the parliament becomes empowered to make the laws with respect to any matter in the state list in relation to the state. A law made so by the parliament continues in the operative even after president's rule, and this means that the period for which such a law remains force is not coterminous with the duration of the president's rule, but such a law can be repealed or altered or enacted. Now let's come on to the fourth point, that's the central's control over the legislation. Besides the parliament powers that we were talking about to the legislation directly on the state subject, under some exceptional situation, the constitution also empowers the state to exercise its control over the state's legislatures matters in the following way. The governor can reserve certain types of bills that are passed in the state legislature for consideration of the president. The president enjoys the absolute veto over them, and the bills on the certain matters can also be enumerated in the state list and can be introduced in the state legislature again only if the previous sanction of the president is done. Now the president can also direct the states to preserve the money bills and other financial bills passed in the state legislature for his consideration during an financial emergency. So from the above, basically from all these points, what we can comprehend that the constitution has assigned a position of superiority to basically center in the legislative areas, and in this context the Sahara Commission on the Center-State Relation in 1983 to 87 basically observed the rule of federal supremacy is the technique to avoid absurdity, resolve conflict, and ensure harmony between state and union. So basically, in order to avoid all that chaos, conflict, and confusion, we have adopted this system of legislation. Now let's come on to the administration relations. Basically, from Articles 256 to 263, we in the part 11 of the Constitution is basically the administration relation between the center and the states. So let's start. Let's start this topic. So the first one is the distribution of the executive powers. So the executive power has been divided between the center on the state on the basis of legislative powers, except in few cases. The executive power center basically extends to the whole of India to the matters to which one the parliament has exclusive power of the legislation, the subjects that has been enumerated in the union list. Then we have to the matters on which the parliament has exclusive power, then to the exercise its right, authority, jurisdiction conferred in any treaty or agreement. Similar, the executive power of a state extend to its territory in respect to the power in respect on which the state legislature have exclusive power of legislation in the matters on which the both of the parliament and the state legislature have the power of legislation. The executive power rests with the states except when the constitutional provision or the parliamentary law specifically confers it on the state. Now let's come on to the obligation of states to the center. So the constitution has placed basically two restrictions on the executive power of the state in order to give them ample scope to center for exercising their own power in the unrestricted manner. So they have basically given the first power is to ensure the compliance with the laws made in the parliament and an existing law which is applied in the state. And the B is come as not to impede or prejudice of the exercise of the executive power of the state. And while the former lays down a general obligation upon the state, for latter imposes a specific obligation on the state not to hamper the executive power of the center. Now let's come on to the direction, the center's direction to the state. So in addition to the above two examples or two cases, the center is also empowered to basically give direction to the states in the following power manner. One is construction and maintenance of the means of communication that has been declared as a national or military importance by the state. Then we come on to the measures that has been taken for the protection of railway within the state, the provision of adequate facilities or for infrastructure in the mother tongue at the primary stage of education to the children belonging to linguistic minority groups in the state, the drawing up and execution of specific schemes for the welfare of the scheduled tribe. Now let's come on to the mutual delegation of powers. So in the mutual delegation of powers, we'll talk about the distribution of legislative powers between the center and the state is basically rigid, and then the center cannot delegate its legislative power to the state in the single state, cannot make the request of the parliament to make law on the state subject. So the distribution of executive power in general follows the distribution of legislative powers, but such a rigid division in the executive power spheres may lead to occasional conflict also between the two. So therefore our constitution has also provided for the intergovernment delegation of executive power in the order to mitigate rigidity or to avoid a situation of deadlock that we were talking about. So therefore the constitution also makes a provision for the entrustment of the executive functions of the center to a state without the consent of the state, but in case the delegation is by the parliament and not by the president. Thus a law made by the parliament on the subject of union list can confer powers and impose the duties on a state, or authorize the conferring of powers and imposition of duties by the center upon the state. So basically the same thing cannot be done by the state legislature. Now let's come on to the cooperation between the center and the state. So the constitution contains the following provision basically to secure the cooperation and coordination between the two. The parliament can provide the uh, uh, adjudication of any dispute or complaint with respect to use and distribution and control of the water. Then the president can establish an interstate council to investigate and discuss the subject of common interest between the states. And this council is also set up in 1990. And then we should have the full faith and credit to be given throughout the territory of India to public acts and records and judicial proceedings of the center in every state. The parliament also can appoint the appropriate authority basically to carry out the purpose of constitutional provision basically related to the interstate freedom of trade, commerce and intercourse, and there is no such authority as has been appointed so far. Now let's come upon to the all India civil services. So basically like any other federation, the center and state have several public services called the central services and the state services. So all India civil services contain IAS, IPS and IFS. So the members of these services occupy basically top position under the center and the state, and they serve them by their turns, and they are recruited and appointed and trained by the center itself. These services are controlled jointly under center and the states, and the ultimate control lies with the central government with the immediate control that vests with the state. So basically, let's talk about the history. 1947. The Indian Civil Services was replaced by Indian Administrative Service, and Indian Police was replaced by IPS, which was recognized as constitution as All India Services. And in 1966, Indian Forest Service was also created as the third list in the All India Services. So basically, the Article 312 talks about the Constitution authorized the Parliament to create new All India Services on the basis of Rajya Sabha resolution to the effect. So, though the All India services violate the principle of federalism under the Constitution by restricting the autonomy and patronage of the states, they are supported on the ground that they can help in maintaining the high standard of administration in the center as well as state. They can help to ensure uniformity of administration throughout the country. They can facilitate license, cooperation, coordination, joint action on the issues of common interest of the center and state. So basically, these are the plus points of All India Civil Services. Now let's come on to the Public Service Commissions. So basically, in the field of Public Service Commission, the center-state relations are as follows. Basically, let's talk about the chairman and the members of the State Service Commission, though appointed by the governor of state, can be removed only by the president. The parliament can establish a joint state public service commission for two or more states on the request of the state legislation. Then the union public servant can also serve the needs of the nation on the request of the state governor with approval of the president. Then the UPSC assists the states in framing and operating the schemes of the joint recruitment for the services which candidate basically possesses special qualification that are required. Then let's talk about the integrated judicial system. So basically, as we know that India has a dual polity and there is no dual system of administration of justice. The Constitution of India has basically established integrated judicial system with Supreme Court at the top. Then we have high courts and then we have lower courts. So basically, there is a system of single system of courts that enforces basically the central laws as well as the state laws. This can be done to eliminate diversity in the remedial procedures. The judges of the state high court are appointed by the president with consultation of the CGI, the Chief Justice of India, and the governor of the state, and they can also be transferred and removed by the president. The parliament can establish a common high court for the two or more states like the Maharashtra and Goa or Punjab, Haryana. They actually have a common high court. Let's talk about the relation during the emergencies and extra constitution devices that are given. So during emergency, national emergency, the center becomes entitled to give execution direction to the state in any matter. Then when the president rule is imposed under Article 356, then the president can assume to function as a state government and powers are vested basically in governors and any other executive authority of the state. And during the operation of the financial emergency, the state can direct the states to the center can direct the state to observe the canons of financial propriety, and the president can give other necessary direction including the reduction of salary of certain persons who are actually serving in the state and high court judges. So now let's talk about the extra constitutional devices that has been provided for basically to promote cooperation and coordination between the center and the state. They include they include all the advisory body and conferences that are held in the central level. The non-constitutional advisory basically consists of the Planning Commission, that now it is known as the NITI Aayog, then the National Development Council, the National Integration Council, the local and the urban government, then the Northeast Council and all these council, and the University Grants Council, Commission, and etc. So basically, the important function of all the conferences have either annually or otherwise to facilitate the state and center consultation on the wide range of matter like the governors conference, the chief ministers conference that has been presided over the prime minister, the chief secretary conference, and etc. So now let's come on to the next topic, that is the financial relation that we'll talk about. So from articles 268 to 293 in part 12 of the constitution deals with the central and state in the financial relation, and besides that there are other provisions that are dealing with. So we need to study that. First, the allocation of taxing powers. So the constitution divides the taxing powers between the center and the states. First, that the parliament has exclusive power to levy the tax on subject that has been enumerated in the union list. Second, the state legislature also has the power to levy the taxes under the state list. Third, that the both center and state can also levy the power on the concurrent list. Now, the residuary power of the taxation has the power to impose the taxes not enumerated in any of the three lists. Now, basically, let's talk that Constitution has placed a restriction on of imposing the taxes by the state. So, a state legislature can impose the taxes on professions, trade, callings, and employments, but the total amount of such taxes are payable by any person should not exceed more than 2,500 per annum. Then a state legislature can impose on the sale of or the purchase of goods other than the newspaper, but the power of state can impose sale tax, so subject to four restrictions. First, that no tax actually can be imposed on the sale or purchase of taking place of outside the states. Then no tax can be imposed on the sale or purchase taking in course of import and export. Then no tax can be actually imposed on the sale or purchase of taking any intercourse between the interstate trade that we talk about, and the tax can be imposed on the sale or purchase of the goods declared by the parliament itself. Now let's come on to the distribution of the tax revenue. So under the 80th amendment of 2000 and 88th amendment of 2003, there are some major changes that has been made under this. So the 80th amendment basically gives a recommendation to the 10th Finance Commission. The commission recommended to find out the total income that has been obtained by the central taxes and duties, and 29% should go to the state. This is actually known as the alternate scheme also of devolution that came effect into April 1, 1996. Then this amendment brought several central taxes, duty of corporation taxes, custom taxes, and etc. And under the 88th amendment, we have added a new article with the service tax that has also been added in the union list. The entry and the service tax is basically levied by the center, and it is collected and appropriated by both the center and the state. So now let's come on to the distribution of non-tax that we are actually talking about. So the non-taxes that the center is that they have the receive of the following in form of major non-revenues like the post, telegraph, railways, bank, broadcasting, coinage, currency, central public sector enterprises, and the lab. The state have received all the major sources of non-tax like the irrigation, forest, fisheries, state sector enterprise. So now let's talk about the next topic, that is grants, and that has been actually made that has been given aid to the state. Then we come on, beside actually sharing the taxes between the state and center, the constitution also provides for the grants in aid tax to the state for controlling the central resources. There are two types. One is the statutory grants. In article 275 basically empowers the parliament to make such grants to the state which needs financial assistance, and not to every state but to some state, and we have given them the fixed amount for the different state, and the sums can be charged on the consolidated fund of India every year. Along with that, we can talk about the discretionary grants that is made under article 282, that is empowers the both center and state to make grants for any public purposes even if it's not within the respective legislative competence. Now these grants are also known as discretion grants because the reason being that the state center is under no obligation to give these grants and matter lies within the discretion. Now the other grants that we talk about is the third type, that is for a temporary period of time, that is a provision that made for the export duties on jute or juice products of state of Assam, West Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, and etc. Now let's come on to the Finance Commission. Now the Finance Commission under Article 280 provides it's a basically a quasi judicial body, and it is consolidated by the president every 5th year or even earlier. So basically it makes some recommendation to the president in the distribution of the net procedure to the taxes that has been shared between the center and the state, then the principle which to govern the grants into the state under the center, that is we are talking about the consolidated fund of India. Then the measure that needs to be augment the consolidated fund of a state to supplement the resources of panchayat, municipalities, the state on the basis of recommendation that has been made by the State Finance Commission. Then the any other matter that refer to the president to the interest of the sound finance. Then till 1960, the commission also suggested amount to be paid to the states like Assam, Bihar, Odisha, where they need to share the net worth of each year on the export duty. Now let's come on to the protection of interest of the state. So in under this, we can actually talk about that the constitution lays the some of the bills that has been introduced by the parliament only on the recommendation of the president. A bill which imposes or varies any tax or duty in the states are interested. Then a bill which varies with the meaning of expression of agriculture income that has been. Then a bill which affects basically the principle like money bills and etc. Then it can also surcharge on any specific taxes also. So now let's come on to the inter-government tax immunities. Like any other federal constitutions, even the Indian constitution also contains the rule of immunity from the mutual taxation that makes the following provision like exemption of central property from the state taxation. So the property of the center is also exempted from all the taxes that has been imposed by the states or all within the authority like municipality, district board, panchayat and so on. But the parliament empowers to remove this ban also. So now let's come on to what are the effects of emergency. So basically a natural emergency which basically proclaims as the national emergency under Article 352 is in operation that the president basically can modify the constitution, the distribution of the revenues between the state and the center. This means the president can either reduce or cancel certain finances that need to be given to them for this from the center to the state, and such modification can take place till the national emergency is operating. Now let's come on to the financial emergency. So basically by proclamation a financial emergency, the center can give direction to the state to observe basically this specify canons of financial propriety, then to reduce the salary and allowance of all the person in serving the state, and to reserve all the money bills and other financial bill of the president. So we have basically covered by and large, we have covered everything till the effects of emergency. In the next video we'll talk about the basically trends in the state relation. So basically we will cover the second section in that, so do watch our part 2 also. So basically you will get a full understanding of this chapter. Thank you so much. Do like and subscribe our channel.